Ladies and gentlemen, the great bird of the galaxy, Mr. Gene Roddenberry.
I know one way I can thank you kind of early. I brought along with me tonight really the best copy that exists of the Star Trek bloopers, and I'll show them in a minute. And I know you'll like that. And for those of you who don't know what bloopers are, very quickly, they're mistakes that are made on camera, and they're really honest mistakes, although these are doctored up with a little sound effects and that sort of stuff. But the reason that they're good is two things. We were doing a science fiction show that you have to work 12 hours a day, 6 days a week to turn the damn things out. You're like doing a half a movie every week. And we had incredibly bright actors. And when they made mistakes, why, they came up with things that were funnier than our comedy writers could write. After that, the things we'll be talking about tonight, what I'm going to try to do for you tonight is if I was making the series again in the 1980s, just as in the 60s we talked about things that were important in the 60s, and we used to take shots against the Vietnam War and stuff like that. I'm going to talk tonight about things that we would be making episodes now for you about these days. So anyway, I'm going to show you the bloopers. Oh, I have some friends here, Dorcas and Stu. I want to tell them that the lady in the blonde wig you'll see in the bloopers, who Dr. McCoy grabs, is my wife. You play golf with. You wouldn't have known it. I'll just tell you one kind of thing the bloopers have, those of you who haven't seen it. There's a scene in there where Kirk and Spock are watching a screen and expects to see an alien vessel go by. Unknown to them, the camera crew has inserted film of a naked lady swimming by. Well, I want you to see how they handle it. Ladies and gentlemen, the world-famous bloopers. I'm supposed to turn this off.
Unplug it. Blow the circuit.
I don't know anything about mechanics. I still laugh, and I guess I've seen them 100 times. But I want to tell you something a little bit serious, why I show these. I show them, of course, because people do enjoy them, and laughter is fun. But there's something else. I'll be talking tonight about the immediate future for us. I'll be saying something about our going up there. And I want to tell you something. Unless we can take along into the future and wherever we go, our sense of humor like that, really, these trips won't be worth a damn. We got it. And as I talk about tomorrow, I want you to be thinking about that, because we are capable of taking our sense of humor along. And that tomorrow, the technological tomorrow that frightens some people, does not have to be a frightening, ugly thing. It can be as warm and lovely and as funny and all of that as today is. Let's see. Oh yeah, one thing I should start up and tell you, because I've had some questions. Definitely, yes, I am working with Paramount on it. They are committed to it. There will be a Star Trek 3 motion picture. Our best guess now on a date, if everything goes real fast and well, would be a year from this Christmas. It would take at least that long to put it together. That's what we're aiming for now anyway. And I know a lot of you may have questions about, hey, wait a minute, isn't Spock dead? You know, and how are you going to bring him alive? Will he be brought to life? I just want you to know that I have no intention of answering any of those questions. But I do intend to see as much of the crew back as possible, and hopefully all of it. My job on that will be the same as the one I chose for the last show, executive consultant. And if you are some of those lovely people who've written letters saying, hey, is nasty old Paramount shoving you aside? Thanks for the letters, but that really isn't what happened. I picked the job myself. I picked R. Bennett as executive producer, because I've known him a long time as a creative man. And look, I headed Star Trek for 16 very long, tough years. As executive consultant, I will watch every word, every piece of film, consult on everything. But I do want to bring some young people along into it. And I think the Wrath of Khan, its success and its excitement kind of indicated that is working. There's a lot of questions about, and we hope to improve further. There are a lot of questions about Star Trek 1 and 2. Why were they so different? There's some technical reasons that was in one of the local papers today about Paramount goes up, but the real reason is this. When we did the original episodes, you didn't see them in the order that we did them. We in episodes 1, 2, 3, 5, we were still pulling and tugging, trying to find a television format, and which we finally found happily, and it's the one you remember. In these movies, we're pulling and tugging, trying to find a motion picture format. Now, a lot of people assume that television and motion pictures are the same thing. What's the trouble? Don't they all image on screen? No, not at all. Television is a very intimate medium. Close shots who deal with people's feelings very closely. And because television does that so good, movies have had to sort of go a different way. And that's why they are more and more broad screen, more and more stereo, Dolby sound. Because the way movies are going is to try to give you a feeling that it is a happening, a huge event that you're watching, and make you feel that you are a part of it right now. And I'll tell you the way it's going. How many of you have any of you been to the National Air and Space Museum in Washington? Yeah, good. And have you seen the movie there done on IMAX film, the story Flight? And well, let me tell the others about it. It's shot, the projector uses images the size of picture postcards. Not little images like regular projectors do, huge things. As a matter of fact, it makes the reels of film so huge, they can't run it up and down. They can be, the reels of film get as big as 8 feet across, and it has to run sideways. Well, what happens? The screen there in that theater, and when you go back there, for God's sakes, go see it. For the museum too, and pay the dollar for this. The screen is like the size of the whole front of this auditorium. Covers your whole field of vision. And when it comes on, it is such clarity that front of the auditorium becomes like a gigantic windshield. And as you're in flight there, it feels like the auditorium is the damnedest feeling. It is such reality. People get airsick, swear, watching this film. And that's the way it's going, and will continue to go. And you have, in film, television is going to get exciting too. Hopefully, commercial programming is going to get better. Pray God. but that's going to get exciting. But movies are going to, you're going to have things in movies that are going to surprise you and please you. So talking about the future. Movies in the future leads me into a subject I want to get into. Your tomorrow, yours. And hell, there is just no more exciting subject in the world. Exciting how? Well, not many people have talked about this. We humans have reached a point where we are doubling our scientific knowledge, which means our knowledge, every 7 years. And for those of you who know math, know that is an exponential increase in knowledge. In other words, if we go back to 61, where we were beginning to think about the first pilot that you'll see when we're all done tonight. You'll see the pilot that NBC turned down because it was too intellectual for you feeble minds out in the audience. But in that pilot, we could not go out in those days. There was no store that would sell us buttons for computers today, which you can go out and buy for $9.95 in a drugstore. So, If in 1961, in those years, we had taken all the knowledge we had, and we had a hell of a lot, we even had jets, the beginning of TV then and all that, and put it in a single library, it would have taken an enormous library, really, to hold it. By 1968, of course, doubled, it would have taken 2 libraries, but hey, now it begins to get interesting. In 1975, our knowledge doubles again. It would have taken out 3, 4 libraries. Here, 1982, 8 such libraries. We have not learned that much in the past 500 years. That is how incredible it is. Some of that, it's just staggering. The computer, I think, which everyone talks about and a lot of people use, and really very few people understand what this thing is and what it means. A few years before we did that enterprise bids and carved those things, anything called a powerful computer would take a 4-story office building, an entire basement of powerful air conditioning just to keep the damn building cool. Today, you can carry today I have a computer on my desk. I can carry it under my arm. Just as powerful and much more efficient, no heat problem at all. We're not far away. You guys will be carrying them in your hand like this. How do we do it? I'm going to be saying this several times tonight. We humans are incredible. Well, we are something, really. And what we did in that case is we simply invented the impossible. We invented silicon chip circuitry, which many of you know about. We've miniaturized it, micro-miniaturized it, until today. Here's something some of you may not know. Right now today, the most powerful televisions that anyone in this room owns, we can put its entire circuitry on a chip so small, you can pass it through the eye of a needle. And we're still miniaturizing them. And along with this, we have developed telecommunications. Telecommunications and the computer together is, you remember reading the Gutenberg press, wow, books and printing, how it changed the whole world? Telecommunication and the computer is the Gutenberg press squared many, many times. What has happened is like, if you pass a pond and you notice that the frogs that develop something that has them leaping 100 feet into the air, some way to increase their leaping. We humans, we fragile humans, in just a speck of time, have developed something that can increase our thinking power 1,000-fold, maybe ultimately 1,000,000-fold. Computer is an absurd name. It computes, yes, it calculates, measures, listens, reads, it reasons. Yeah, hey, on the basis of stored information, it makes decisions. It reasons, and it does it better every day. What is it? It is, of course, the first beginnings of a mechanical brain. Really, that's what it is. And that is no more dangerous to us, or no more upsetting to anybody's God, than levers and pulleys that increase the strength of our arm, or heart pacemakers, or wheelchairs, or libraries, which do some things better than our brains. Well, computers, you hear science fiction writers writing about computers enslaving us, and I like a good story as much as anyone, but that is absolute nonsense. We happen to have invented the most perfect servant we humans could ever have. It's going, just in your immediate future, it's going to enrich and simplify your lives in ways that would be laughed off a science fiction magazine even today. Now, all of this is yesterday. I want to get into the future. Tomorrow, 7 years from now, we will have increased our knowledge 16 times over what it was in 61, and in 7 more years, 32 times what it was in 61. And hell, most of you in this audience will not be middle-aged by then. As a matter of fact, you will not be considered middle-aged in those days until you're at least in your 60s. And you will be having sex through your 90s, and that's my good news for tonight. I'm going to try to make a few of you, we're going to have some fun and other things, but while I'm on this, I'm trying to make a few of you happy maybe that you can. Because there's a question, and I relieve some fears, there's a question you keep hearing asked, you know. Hey, the more scientific knowledge we get, aren't we just inventing more ways to blow ourselves up? No. That is not the answer. We have many optional alternates that we can have. And one of these is most exciting is the fact that what we've been doing is we've reached the point where we can begin to calculate and understand things of almost infinite complexity, including the human mind, how we work, how we relate to each other. Why? Why do we humans literally have to invent reasons to hate each other? I think in your time, and I hope in mine, there's a new breed of scientists that's going to come along, like the new Galileos and Newtons, who instead of finding the natural laws of mass and energy and gravity and so on, will be revealing natural laws of humanity, of human relations, of how humans think and adjust. And I think that they're going to teach us to wipe out diseases like hatred, intolerance, perhaps to help us begin to achieve some racial maturity. When? I think it's going to happen. I think it will happen, but there's just one question mark. You and me. For hundreds of centuries in the past, it was always possible. We live in an historic verse. It was always possible when the world faced problems in the past for some of us to hide out, go somewhere, or to, or at the last moment, chicken out, or buy our way out. Hey, no more. There ain't no place left to hide. If you happen to believe, as I do, however, that human consciousness is a legitimate part of something awesome, to use an old-fashioned word, something divine, then you are committed, whether you like it or not. We all are. We can't escape being involved. That's all I'm going to say about that tonight. I'm going to write about it. That's one of the things, and that involves a lot of subjects we would be making episodes about. We were doing them now. Of course, we would try to do them with humor and excitement, enough to suck you into your television set, as we did before, and occasionally try to zing you with something. I think part of that future I've been talking about almost certainly is going to be played out in space. Why? Because, hell, we sit right now, I think, slightly better off than we were in 1492 when we were trying to discover the New World. We can go up there, but we have the ability to go up there right now, no more danger than those little rowboat-sized ships crossed that stormy Atlantic and begin to put colonies on the New World. And you know what the New World was worth. It's also no more expensive, the money we have to do it. And I'm going to show you a short film now that has some scenes that the general public has not seen. It's called Spaceborne. It will look like you're seeing parts of a multi-million-dollar science fiction epic. Every shot in this will have been shot by our astronauts. And really, I am sorry for anyone who cannot sit up excited and tingle over the excitement of what you're seeing, because you're seeing Ulysses, Eric the Red, you're seeing Magellan, all of these things in our time. You're seeing the most incredible human adventure of all time. In this film, encapsulated in very short form, it's only a 12-minute film, will be the trip to the moon and back. And you'll watch our astronauts when they had the trouble up there repairing their space vehicle. No one had a guarantee that it'd get back. Seems like, easy now. It was tough. If you look closely, you'll see the Russian Soyuz vehicle come up. You'll see our guys in their undershorts, like a bunch of boys in zero gravity, doing somersaults and having fun. Just on the subject of zero gravity, which is, it's got to be better than a waterbed, right? Every time I think about it, I think that the Russians have got a woman up there. And I think, gee, I don't want them to beat us to what Americans should do first, Right? I believe in what's important. Anyway, just a couple of things you'll be seeing if you don't know these capsules and so on. Yeah, you'll see the lunar lander that goes down to the moon, blast clear of the Apollo capsule. You'll see it out there in space, spreading out like a crab, spreading out its giant 3 legs that it lands on. You'll be with it. Great camera work. And I don't know how they got some of these shots. Great camera work, landing on the moon. Boom, a man about this big against a gigantic lunar landscape that you've never seen. You'll see the Earth come up. You'll see an Earth rise, blue Earth, and then with the astronauts aboard, that lander is going to charge up into the sky again. The camera's going to follow it all the way up, and you're going to say, "God, I wonder who stayed behind and shot this thing." then it'll come up and mate with the Apollo craft again and back to Earth. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have soul and spirit, you're really going to feel pride that you are a human being, one of these people. There's no dialogue with it. It's done with music. It's a piece of art. Ladies and gentlemen, Spaceborne. Your long-distance telephone calls, as you know, have been bounced off satellites up there. We're doing oil surveys from up there now. I remember being in the Harvard Luncheon Club several years ago, and I mentioned to them that one day they would be seeing pictures of Earth with cloud cover, and you could figure out what the weather's going to be. They almost threw me out of the thing. And that was only about 7 years ago, 8, maybe 10 now. They asked, do we belong up there? I know there's some pioneer blood in this room. I say to you, we humans belong any damn place we can get. That's how it is. We happen to have. There's no way we can afford not to go up there. Right now, in zero gravity, and practically zero temperature up there, we will be allowed to do certainly things for electronics that we badly need. There are miracle drugs that in that environment that we can begin to make. Out there in this great backyard we have up here, which fortunately has no life on it, no Indians we've got to push off their land, we have enough energy, raw materials to keep this race going 10,000 years until we are ready to go further out to the stars. They say in Washington, they talk about the expense in Washington. I sometimes think on the Potomac River there's some sort of a science fiction fog that comes up and makes people cuckoo when they get too near to it. That space program has already paid us back 10 times, and even if it hadn't, I say to you that any nation that can afford to spend $7 billion a year on cosmetics can damn well afford a space program. I'd like to get down among you for some questions and comment in a few minutes. Before I do that, though, I want to tell you that I have with me what appears to be a lot of people ask questions about extraterrestrials. I have here tonight what appears to be excerpts from a diary of an extraterrestrial, an alien from elsewhere, who lived here among us humans. Writers, science fiction writers, often come into possession of such things. But we're going to do that at the end. Before the questions, I want to also explain to you about the movie we're going to see tonight. Yes, we did two Star Trek pilots. The first one was turned down by NBC as too intellectual for you. It went on to win an International Hugo Emmy, but I think many things turned down by networks would probably win awards easily. Some of you who have watched Star Trek have seen parts of it in a two-parter called The Menagerie. But this is the original cage. This is the original cage starring Jeff Hunter. The only person in it that stayed with the show is, well, the only person that stayed with the show in any capacity is Mr. Spock. And he's not going to be in this quite the Mr. Spock you remember from the television episode. He tends to get a little nervous in times of disorder and so on. Because he was only the third or fourth person down in the cast. The one under the captain, the second in command of the Enterprise in this was a woman. And NBC came in and said, you've got to take her out when you do a new pilot, because no one's going to believe a woman in command of anything. Don't boo NBC. I've got to tell you something that's kind of funny. These were shown to test audiences. Almost all the women in those days, in those test audiences, were writing things like, "Who does she think she is?" So hey, all of us, we've come a long way, really. We make progress. See, there is hope for us. We are something. But NBC did say a silly thing. They said, while you're taking out the woman, take out the guy with the ears, because no one's going to believe him either. And I was having so many fights with them, I figured I couldn't win them all, and I knew I needed the alien. And so what I decided to do was give Spock stronger mental qualities and the whole thing we know about. So I kept Leonard Nimoy on the show, and I fired the woman and married her. I could not do it the other way around. Or if I had, I doubt I would have gotten my 8-year-old son that I had. So it's considered sort of a document. You can see it in black and white, and I hope those of you who get to see it will enjoy it. Okay. Now, we'll do a little questions, and I don't mind if you ask tough questions, really. In fact, it makes it more interesting. And also, I'm a writer. If I don't have an answer, I will simply invent one. Say some things. I wanted to talk against Vietnam, which I thought was awful. I wanted to say that the worst things that can happen to all of us is for society to force us into looking and acting and thinking alike. I wanted to say that the glory of the universe, the glory of society is in its diversity. When we get wise someday, we're just going to be delighted in our differences. And so, and to say that, to make something like that on other planets was the easy way to do it. Someday you'll read Jonathan Swift, who was a guy in England a long time ago, where they would have chopped off his head if he had talked like that. So he wrote a thing called Lilliput, with little people, and that was his way of talking about his things. Okay, right here.
Yes, two questions. First of all, would you describe Captain Kirk as an existential character?
Thank you. I would describe him as an essential character.
Okay.
Well, I don't know. We haven't decided who will write the novel of the Rathacon. I did enjoy writing the novel of the first one. In many ways, novel writing, I say to you who are interested in writing, novel writing in many ways is much more fun than writing motion pictures, because you don't have to worry about actors and directors and studios. You just, do it. My opinion on the 15 or so Star Trek fiction books, I think they're good and bad. I think there's some very clever ones, and I think they're all fun. There are a lot of people who were just, in high school and grammar school when we started, who are now writers because of sci-fi fan magazines and so on, and that's really great. Right here. Mm-hmm.
Yes, I was wondering how you picked the power source of the Enterprise, dilithium crystal, if that has any significance.
Well, the dilithium crystal is really not the power source. The way we figured it is matter and antimatter, and I did that because my friends at Caltech just told me hey man, if you're going to do this thing you're talking about, that's the only power you're going to have. The dilithium crystals we put into a story by saying that these dilithium crystals was the only way you could meter and monitor bringing together of matter and antimatter. And as a matter of fact, they are extremely rare, extremely necessary, and they may play a part in Star Trek 3 if they follow the storyline that I've been seeing going on. Right here. Go ahead. I'll do you and I'll find out who else wanted to. I told them, Tom should not recognize Chekhov. And they said to me, listen, the audience won't notice. They don't know our fans. They change their mind fast. Right back here. Yes, sir. Will we see movies turning into things like TV series? Yes. I think we've already seen it in like 007. It went that way. And before you were born, there was Ma and Pa Kettles that went a long way, and there were Mickey Rooney, Andy Hardy pictures. And they've done it before, and I think, that will happen. One reason it'll happen is movies economically are a much better investment than television. Television is not a highly profitable thing for people who make it. It's highly profitable for the networks who sell product, but not for the makers. So therefore they do. And listen, don't think for a minute that the point of view of commercial television is to provide entertainment. It is to sell pills and beers and soap and all of those things, and that's the reason it's bad. Because in order, they want you to sell as much as possible, so the programs go to the lowest common denominator to bring as broad an audiences as possible. And they don't really give a damn about the entertainment. A few do, a few unhappy executives do. There are bright ones, but they're likely to lose their jobs if they care too much. Right here. If I start that, I'm in trouble. Yes, sir. Is it true that Chekhov was added in the Russians? Yeah. Someone gave me a copy, translated copy of the Communist Youth newspaper and commenting on Star Trek coming out. And it said, okay, the ugly Americans have done it again. You know, they got a space thing and they've got all sorts of people aboard. And we who got up there first, they don't even have one of us. And I said, damn it, they are right. Because their achievements are something. You should be very proud that you have Russians on this planet with you in the area of the space program, because they've done marvelous things. And so whether you agree with them or not, be proud of them as humans. But I invented Chekhov, and we put him in, and I wrote a nice letter to this newspaper. Well, I'm sorry to report I never got an answer, but we did get Chekhov. But the Americans, parts of America don't do any better, because the Air Force came out with an article saying they had done something phasing lasers, and they were coming out with a tool, maybe someday a weapon called a phaser. And I wrote them too, and I said, I hope you use it with as much respect for life form as our people did, and they didn't answer that either. So. Okay, right there. Speak up.
This is in reference to the next movie. I understand that along with Carl Bennett, you also are going to be writing a script. Is that true? And if so, what's the title?
In the next movie, I'm working with the story, telling him things I think would be important to see with it, but we have not settled on a title. We're just at story stage. Okay, now just a few more, and then we're going to get on. I saw some young person. Oh, who's a young person? Right here. The question was that Robert was the Robert Lansing, Gary 7-1, a pilot, and it was, except that by that time the studios had decided Star Trek was a failure, you know. Really, Star Trek was not a successful show. It was on the air. They tried to throw us off the air the second year, and you know the fans, and I suppose some of you were here too, just wrote 1 million letters to NBC and forced them to keep it on the air. They blockaded Rockefeller Center. Some MIT students got in and inserted the Star Trek theme in the building's Muzak system. Stuff like that. NBC appointed a vice president investigator, and he sent him down on the street with these kids, and he would sidle up to the kids and he would say, "Hey, how did Gene Roddenberry get you out here?" And so I called up the president of the company and said, "Listen, if I could pick up the phone and bring 10,000 people out in the street, I'd get the hell out of show business and into politics." Right here. Where'd I get the names? Well, the phasers was mine because I started off on the first show using the word laser, and I thought, oh my God, you know, before I really get on the air, I know they're going to have lasers, and I got to have something that can do extra things. And I thought of the phasing principles of physics. Mr. Spock, in my first draft, came from Mars. Boy, can you believe how bad that would have been? It was as bad as a demand I got from the network. Cigarette advertising was a big advertising in those days, and they said, "Hey, how come nobody on the starship is smoking cigarettes?" And I smoked in those days, but at least I was sensible enough to say, well, you know, I think people will get smarter. And they said, "No, listen, we want you to consider inventing a science fiction cigarette. Maybe it would be square or something like that." Now, can you imagine trying to sell reruns today, Mr. Spock sitting there smoking on a square cigarette? The world is sometimes cuckoo. What was my opinion of the Star Trek animated series as compared? I think it was good for a kid's show at that time because it didn't have the violence and so on, and it did win an Emmy for kids' shows. What I really would have preferred to do is a adult animated series, because, well, with animation, you can create and show things that you can never do on camera, and that would be real fun. Well, next to last question.
When the recent success of the Star Wars and Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy radio shows, are you planning to do any radio work, either with Star Trek or Quester or Genesis 2 or anything?
Am I planning to do any radio work with Star Trek or any of those? I would kind of like to do radio if I could make a proper deal with Paramount and justify the time, because I love the fact in radio, you know, you got the theater of your own mind, and wow, really fun, imagination. I'd love to. Okay, this one.
You talked a lot about the positive benefits of going into space, but our government seems only interested in the defense and offensive uses. And how do you respond to, like, the U.S. Air Force has just set up a separate space command just to check into offensive possibilities?
Okay, we're talking about going into space, and I was talking about good things, and how about the fact that the way military things will send us up there. Unfortunately, it's very true that it will.
Yeah.
Just like in the 1940s, they suddenly realized that the major tactical ocean was no longer the water, but it was the air, as a guy named General Billy Mitchell had been trying to tell him years ago, and they cashiered him from the Army for talking of silly things like that. Well, what has happened now is the orbital space ocean has become the main tactical ocean. It is the ocean that washes on every shore. And yes, the military is heavily interested in this. This can be good and bad. I think it's a shitty reason for going into space, but excuse me. You're a lot of little annoyance down there, Nathan. But it's a fact. But also it has plus points because we have jet airliners coast to coast because of military things. I'm sorry people had to get killed. I think we will avoid all-out war, and I think there may be a lot of skirmishing up there. But I think it's just part of our getting there. And really, the world depends again on people like you. Really, people like you and I. You're going to have to take some chances, some very exciting things are going to happen. There's a whole group in Europe, and it's going to come over here, of people who are refusing the whole idea of an accident of birth. A certain place, whether it's Switzerland or Holland or wherever it is, owns my soul, and can tell me when I can't leave and where I can't go. Won't let me visit my brothers on this planet, forces me to contend against them. There are going to be movements like this, and you're going to have to decide what to do. Some of them are going to be very unpopular, hated. You're going to have to decide what's important. You're going to have to take some chances, just like your ancestors did, except in a different way. And that's the way we will save ourselves, is that we are incredible, not just in mechanical, technical ways. When we push the wall, we're incredible in the heart, too. We're a gutsy race, really. We are. Okay, a final thing. I promised to talk about my extraterrestrial. It's just a short little thing, but it's kind of fun. I came across this some years ago. I had the honor some years ago, to be selected to receive the American Freedom Award in Washington, D.C. And they do it at the Goddard Memorial Dinner. And it scared the bejesus out of me, because Bob Hope and Walter Cronkite had been the only two people to get it. And they said, I had to go up like them, and they had done it the years previous, and give like a 20, 25-minute talk. And I don't like to compete against either of those men, really. I knew it would be heard by Secretary of Defense, head of NASA, scared. I was so scared, I went 6 weeks, never wrote a word. True story. I'm there the afternoon, so I'm about an hour and a half away from having to go in and put on my tux. Finally, words began to appear on the rented hotel typewriter in front of me. And yeah, they were my fingers and so on. But it was kind of a spooky feeling too, because they came so fast and so clear. It was probably neat, but it felt to me like it was sort of like feeling someone else's thoughts. But anyway, when I was called to the platform, that's all I had. I didn't know how it would go over. And when the Marine Corps band finished the ceremonies and they marched off and they phoned me up, I read these words that I'll now repeat to you. They worked. I had a 4-star general come rushing down and grab my hand and said, "Smartest damn alien I have ever heard of." Anyway, here's how it goes. It starts, will the human creature evolve into an intelligent life form? That species seems now at the crossroads of that decision. Fortunately, no one else will be harmed if humanity takes the wrong course. If the creature remains savage, it will, of course, destroy itself long before it can reach out far enough to contaminate other inhabited worlds. Get this, the governing laws of the universe work as perfectly in checking and balancing life forces as they do in regulating other natural forces. Despite what sometimes seems insurmountable evidence to the contrary, my alien rights, I am inclined to believe that humans will ultimately survive. Perhaps by living among them, my judgment has become too subjective, but they have given me many pleasant moments. And typical of these moments are ones in which they exhibit their skill at music, which sometimes 100 or more of them will join together into a symphonic oneness. And it is difficult not to be optimistic as one listens to such loveliness and then realizes that it is being performed by awkward, brute animal forms who still retain the claws and the fangs of their savage beginnings, and each of them still racked by brutish animal needs to survive and to reproduce. At such moments, one can understand and appreciate humans for what I now believe they truly are. Infants, sometimes cruel and unthinking like all infants, but made attractive and precocious by some divine spark that is within them. He goes on, until recently, humans have been preoccupied almost exclusively with their external world, believing that material things are the only form of reality, and the same error characterizes their space program. But fortunately, some of them, and particularly the younger ones, are beginning to discover the existence of inner space. And as they begin to understand inner space, of course, they will understand that infinity extends not only outward, but in all directions. I don't think my alien would mind. He's got one final sentence, and I don't think he'd mind if I dedicated it to those of you who are here tonight. He says this: it is interesting to reflect on what this infant race might one day accomplish when at last they realize that the cosmos outside and the cosmos inside themselves are one and the same. Thank you. Enjoy being here.